Welcome to Tail Learn Code. Here there will be tales about software development, learning from each other, code to build solutions. And now your host, Chad Green.
All right, welcome everyone. Hope everyone's having a great day so far. Today, I'm lucky and privileged to have Woody, as I know him better, but Chris Woodford. So Chris, if you could just say something, make sure we got you correctly on the stream.
Yeah, so
All
it's
right.
Chris Woodruff, but
Woodruff, yes.
that's okay. Everyone messes up my last name, so it's no big deal. No big deal, Chad. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, yeah, you're coming through fine. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, well, thank you for having me.
So you're used to hosting your own show, right?
Yeah, I'm used to saying what you're saying, so yeah, but I do appreciate being on the other end and being a guest every once in a while.
Well, I appreciate you joining us. So real quick, I mean, for those who don't know you, I mean, who is Chris? What do you do and such?
Yeah. So I'm an old guy. I've been doing this for almost 25 years. It's coming up, either it's just past 25 years or coming up to 25 years. I've lost track of time. But yeah, I've been doing this since like early 1995. So I guess it is over 25 years. And, I came in back in the old days of client server, kind of just before the internet exploded. And I've seen our industry transform beyond my wildest imagination. And the community has grown and everything has grown for the better. We still have things to improve, but I think everything is for the better in the last 25 years.
Oh yeah. It's so you and I, at least professionally, started around the same time. I professionally started in 94. But I mean, back then, there were groups and everything, but there really wasn't a community like we have today, right? Most of the groups were more hobby focused and more infrastructure focused as opposed to software focused. But it's been great, and of course you're a big part of the community. That's, hence why you brought it up. I mean, it's great to see how much the community has matured. But you are right. I mean, we have a lot of room to grow.
We do.
And I know.
I mean, I came in right so I started doing, when I came out of college, I started doing Delphi. So I started doing Object Pascal and Delphi, and while other people were doing VB6, I kind of was doing a parallel type of stack.
Yeah.
And there was the start of Delphi user groups and Delphi conferences that Borland put on. And that's how I kind of learned about the community and learned how to become a better developer and stuff like that. And then it transferred when I came over 15 years ago, or maybe 16 years ago, over to the .NET side. So.
Well, sure enough. I mean, actually, I was going to ask this later on, but talking about community, as I said, I mean, you've been a part of the community for a long time. I noticed it, and I haven't heard it yet, but you started a new podcast.
I did. So a couple episodes are out. You can find it out on Apple and Google and Stitcher and most of the places that you can find podcasts that aggregate podcasts. It's called Talking for Dev. And even though at this point we're not doing a lot of talking about dev, we're talking about community and talking about all of the non-technical. I want to talk about to start with this podcast, all the non-technical stuff that we deal with, that I'm passionate about and other people are passionate about. So that is a lot of talk about community, about inclusion, pulling people in, mentorship, this new, not really a new concept, but I think in our community it might be a new concept of emotional intelligence, and trying to get people to think about that, to be better coworkers, better teammates, and stuff like that. So it's like variation of the of most software development podcasts are about. But I'm also doing other stuff like blogging about web APIs, and I'm even thinking about starting a Twitch channel since everyone else is doing it. I might do it around web APIs and stuff like that. So,
well, no, I saw a tweet. Actually, just this morning, I saw a tweet that you just interviewed Cecil Brown, and that's how I found out about this podcast. Of course, my first introduction to you was FriedBytes. It's like that's how I got to know who you were. Listening to you on that for years. Yeah,
that was a fun time. That was kind of the before podcasts were really big. I mean, there were only a handful of .NET podcasts, and it was fun to be one of those people that shared information. And then in 2014, we kind of stepped away from that. Keith and I both needed some time to do some other things. Sure. And since that time, the podcast kind of industry has blown up, and when I started to think about doing another podcast last year, I was like, man, there's a lot of technical podcasts. I mean, even though I named it Talking About Dev, I think I can talk about something that can help devs, but maybe in a slightly different way. So, I had a talk with Cecil Phillip last night, who works at Microsoft. He's a cloud advocate, but we were just talking about mentorship and how to get into the community and how to be a mentor. And we were talking about implicit and explicit mentoring, and it was an interesting talk. It was really good, and I'll have that out in a number of weeks with him on it, kind of going through everything that we talked about.
Yeah. Like I will definitely be checking out that podcast. It's funny, I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, but I was also several times a week I was driving 2 hours each way to an office. So I have plenty of time. Now I work from home completely. So it's podcast listening is not as much as it used to be.
Yeah, I agree with you. When I was driving, I work at Quicken Loans, and I live in Grand Rapids, and I would have to drive over to Detroit once a week, and I would drive home, and it's about 2.5, 3 hour drive each way. And that's where I got all my podcasts listening to, and some audiobooks. I'm a big fan of audible.com. So I have tons of Audible books that I'm not listening to right now because I'm at home and I just don't travel. So I'm not going to conferences. When I did go to conferences, I would have 7-8 hours in the airports and on planes. I would listen to stuff like that. So I find that I need to get back into it. I've been trying to listen to them in the morning, like getting up early and listen to an hour and a half while I drink my coffee and read my emails and kind of before meetings I'll start.
Yeah, I need to do something similar because I've gotten behind a lot of them. I at least get a couple hours each week when I'm doing yard work. So that's at least good. And I do the hack of I listen to double speed so I can get through them quicker. And, So talking about Quicken Loans, so you have a very interesting job you're doing there, and you're not the first person I've interviewed on this series who's in developer relations, but yours is different because you're doing developer relations internally. So I'm curious about that. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, it is interesting. So it's we've had to do it because of circumstances. So Quicken Loans, we are doing some initiatives to build out some services and some APIs that will be public facing. I can't go into all the details about that, but we are looking to do that, and that's being done right now. COVID kind of slowed it down. So in the meanwhile, Ted Neward. So Ted Neward is my leader at Quicken Loans, and he's part of a team called Technology Culture. And so technology culture is to influence and change for the better the culture inside Quicken Loans. And he wanted me to come over underneath his team to do developer relations. And we sat down and we're like, so what do I do when I don't have an external facing side of DevRel? And so we started talking, and it was a great talk. And, we have a lot of APIs internal to Quicken Loans and what we call the FOC, the family of companies, which is all the companies that Dan Gilbert owns. They span lots of different industries, but mostly we're talking about all the ones that kind of revolve around owning a home, owning a home, and keeping a home up and living in it.
Sure.
So there's lots of APIs internally. And so part of my job and my team's work is to evangelize and do DevRel for those teams that need help getting more exposure for their APIs internal to the company. I mean, it's a big company, and sometimes someone comes out with a great API and they have a hard time kind of championing it, and we can be champions for it. And then also part of my team is doing is also helping with culture, and we're doing things like bringing external experts into Quicken Loans to have workshops. So like what you're doing with Code PaLOusa, we do once a month, and we do a 4-hour workshop once a month, and hopefully soon we're going to be doing it multiple times, probably 2 times a month. And we'll bring someone in. We had like Steve Smith come in and do .NET architecture, where he talked about clean code, refactoring, and design patterns for 4 hours. And our teams got to ask questions, take a look, get his demos. And we also had, the last one was Julie Lerman, who came in and talked about Entity Framework Core and did everything from beginner all the way up to using EF Core inside containers. So we do that. So we're doing things that probably aren't traditionally DevRel,
right,
but that we have passion about, that we're trying to make our technical teams better.
But honestly, that sounds really great. I mean, right now I work for a small company, but when I was at HP, that was always the hardest part, was knowing what other people within the company were doing. And a lot of times we ended up reinventing things because, that was already built before. And that's not a problem just HP has. That's a problem most bigger companies have.
They do.
So,
they do. I mean, the problem is that when you're on a team, you talk to that team a lot, and you have lots of good ideas, and you come up with good practices and good techniques. But how do you share that with every other team? And so we're trying to build some initiatives to do that also, to share ideas within the company. And, it's just a really cool place to work. And I work with some really great people, and directly and indirectly. And it's been a blessing to have started working there last September.
Yeah, well, I mean, Quicken Loans has been very successful at getting the who's who working for them. Right? I mean, it's
yeah.
Yeah.
They take care of their people. So
yeah, I've heard really good things about QL and I've spoken to not that I was looking, but talking to the folks like like a Code Mash who were doing the recruiting just to hear what they had to say. But it's like, and I know quite a few people at QL, so it's Hence I know the lingo of calling it QL, not
QL, Quicken Loans. I mean, we can call it QL, but the great thing is that the good side. One of the good things that are coming out of the COVID pandemic, if there's any good things coming out of it, is that we have identified that working from home is actually more productive. People are happier. Now there's a lot of people that want a hybrid type of work environment where they can come into the office a couple days a week and they can be home for a few days a week. And we're doing that, but we're also turning into I will say we're leaning towards remote first. If someone, there's people now in Detroit that live in Detroit that will be working probably 100% at home. And so we're not. It used to be that Quicken Loans was primarily, everyone would be in the office, but one is we can't put everyone in the office like we did before. We have to be about 50% because of space and the way that our offices have to be redesigned for to make everyone safe in this pandemic. But that's great for people that don't live in Detroit or don't live in Phoenix or don't live in Charlotte or don't live in Cleveland, is that we have the ability for people who want to come work for us to be remote, and we're turning into remote friendly and remote first.
That's cool. And it's actually interesting here because because I know Quicken spent a lot of money building up a lot of taking over a lot of the land real estate in downtown Detroit, and I actually, one of these days I'd love to see all that, just what all has been done, because I've heard a lot of great things about how really neat the buildings are. And and they're building 2 skyscrapers right now right by our existing offices. So it's not that we don't want people to come in the office or we're going to turn into 100% everyone remote, but we're just understanding that everyone has a different idea and a different way that they want to work. It's really good to hear that they're understanding that, right? Again, talking about HP never could figure that out, right? The people don't want just one thing or another, right? And they went through the whole thing of they closed down offices and told everyone, go home, and people were upset. They didn't like that, right? They wanted to be in an office. Then a couple of years later, then everyone needs to come back to an office, and they were like, wait a second, I've been working from home for the last couple of years. I got used to this, right?
Sometimes, do I like working in my home office 100% of the time? No, I am a social person. I like to be around people. It has been, I won't say it's been easy to be home all the time since March 12th, when the last time I was in the office in Detroit. I like going to conferences, and I like going to the office and meeting with people and going out to lunch with people. And here in Michigan, restaurants have been open for like 3 or 4 weeks. And I've gotten back out to restaurants, but I like going out to eat with coworkers and teammates also. And so there has to be a balance.
No, and I actually that's something our team has been talking about. So it's funny, we're 100% remote company, but most everyone in tech is all in this area in Louisville. We used to have weekly lunches, nothing formal. It was just whoever, who was ever able and wanted to come, come to lunch. And obviously we haven't done that since March. And I was just talking to my VP about that like 2 weeks ago. We were talking about how the pressures of the pandemic are affecting people, even people who work remote anyways. And that was one of the things we talked about. It's not like we can go out to lunch anymore, right? I mean, sure, we can still talk on Teams, all that kind of stuff, but it's not the same thing as actually physically being, with each other and sharing a meal. Because I mean, sharing a meal makes a big difference.
It does. It does. Even though we're remote, we still need that human contact.
Exactly.
And Zoom meetings and team meetings and Slack meetings they don't fully fill the void that we all need to have to be, because we're social animals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, human beings need to be in a social environment. And so hopefully whatever the new normal kind of settles into, I know Quicken Loans is being very proactive about allowing people to have a new normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope a lot of other companies figure that out. They seem to be. I hear a lot of good things from other tech companies that they're taking, kind of relooking at how they do work and what constitutes work. And it's also the other way around is, we can't, even though I'm remote, I step away from this room and leave it, and I don't come back to it after a certain time at night.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a downside of remote is, it's easy to come back at 8 o'clock and you got an email from someone who just wants something done, and it can probably get done tomorrow, but why not? I'll just hop on and do it tonight and get it done. Well, you know what? You got to have boundaries. So that's the other thing that we need to figure out, and we need to make sure people understand that they shouldn't be working all hours.
Yeah, and I find developers have a hard time with that, the separating themselves away from it. Because most developers want to be very helpful. I mean, that's something we deal with our team, right? Is trying to get people to understand they don't need to be online 24 hours a day, right? It's I got someone on excuse me, I got someone on vacation right now, and he's responding to teams quicker than I am sometimes, right? Like you're on vacation, you're failing at vacation, right?
I know. Last Friday, I went up to Traverse City, Michigan, with my wife for kind of a day and a half getaway overnight, and we got back to the hotel room Friday evening before dinner, and I jumped into Teams, kind of our little team channel, and because I had to answer an email that was important, and I needed to do it right then, but I just jumped into our team channel and said, hey, I just want to say hi and hope everyone has a good weekend. And everyone was like, what are you doing here? Go, you're on vacation, go, get out of here. And it felt good for people to tell me that, because sometimes it's so easy to slip back into that work mentality, even when you're on vacation, and you shouldn't be doing that. You should be unwinding and taking a break and recharging your batteries.
Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that leads into, so what do you like to do for fun?
Well, I have kids, so most of my fun is revolved around my kids.
Mm-hmm.
So they play sports, and so we have that. Another thing is I like to read. So during the pandemic, I have purposely, I'm rereading the entire Dune series. So all 6 books that Frank Herbert has, what he wrote, and then the 2 books, even though his son and another author created another dozen books, I'm going to just read the 2 books that follow up on Mr. Herbert's 6th book. So it's a total of 8 books. So I'm into book 6 right now. So I'm on the last book that he wrote, and I want to get through all those. So I try to read a lot. I'm trying not to watch a lot of TV, And the other thing is I've been watching a lot of movies. So my son is an aspiring film person, so he doesn't know if he wants to write screenplays or direct, but he loves watching movies. So we have been watching samurai movies.
Oh wow!
And the corresponding, well, not only the samurai movies. So these are Japanese movies, usually from the 50s and 60s. So they're all subtitled. But a lot of times, Western movie makers would take these samurai movie stories and make them into westerns. So, like, there was a samurai movie, and I may get the name of the movie wrong. It's like Toibo or something like that. But basically, it was a story that Fistful of Dollars was based on. So it's the man with no name, and it was the samurai with no name. So we're watching all these really interesting movies, and he'll pull me in, and he likes to watch, like, find a director and watch all their movies sequentially in time, like that they produced in time. So we watched all the Stanley Kubrick movies, and we watched all the Coen brother movies, and it's so that's what I like to do. I like to read, watch movies. I collect bourbon, so I like to have a few fingers of bourbon each week, and go around and try to find new bourbons to buy, and make my wife upset because I have way too many bottles in the house. So.
Now I love that watching the movies part. Not because you're watching movies. I mean, which is great, but the fact that not only you're watching it with your son, but it's something that is his future endeavors in life, right? That's pretty darn cool.
Yeah. And it's fun. He tells me all these like movie techniques and stuff that he's learning about and reading about, and I'm like, oh yeah, I never realized that shooting from this angle or this way gives a different emotion to a movie, or the music, or like lighting and stuff like that. So I'm trying to figure out how I can bring all that into software development, if there's an angle and kind of a way to bring that into how we do software, but I don't know.
Yeah. Let's talk about your Code PaLOusa talks. So you're going to be doing a workshop and a regular session. So
Yep.
your workshop, so a half day on building web APIs with ASP.NET Core 3.1. So, I mean, obviously the key takeaway is building a web API, but I mean, can you give a little bit more? I mean, what is someone who attends that session, what are they going to get out of that?
Yeah. So, I mean, they're going to get the basics. They're going to get kind of how to build a ASP.NET using ASP.NET Core 3.1 web API, how to build a production API. We're gonna build it against the Chinook database, so it will be around a simulated online music store. So it's an interesting concept. So we'll build that. But really, what I'm trying to get people to really learn from it is architecture, how to build it architecturally sound, and also how to build an API that communicates intent to the consumer of that API. So, and I'll say my general talk is around this, around this whole idea of using HTTP as a language. So I know I'm jumping into my general talk, but
no, I was about to say that is a perfect segue into your general talk.
It is, and what the intent is to. Oh, my wife just walked in, and thank you. The intent is to build an API that is architecturally sound, but can also be easily consumed by whatever needs to consume it, mobile app or a web app or another system, another API that needs to communicate with it.
No, I think both of those are going to be really great. So on the workshop, I mean, how much knowledge does someone have coming in?
Yeah, I would want someone to know a little bit about, have a decent knowledge of C#.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to be an expert in C#. We won't be doing. I try to keep it simple. I try to keep it as GUMP as I can. So GUMP inside QL just means keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not gonna. And my architecture is really it's simple, but it's logical. So a decent knowledge of C#, and also maybe a little bit about NED framework. If you come from NED framework 6 and .NET framework, that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
If you know a little bit about EF Core, that's cool, but you don't need to know a whole lot. So you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to know very much about APIs. So this is really something that a beginner can do, and then someone with some experience. I hope the architecture discussion through the workshop will also give those people some knowledge that they can take back to their offices and their teams.
Oh, that's awesome. Like I said, I'm looking forward to that. It should be a good presentation. I mean, obviously, that's something you have always focused on, is ASP.NET, and in particular, I think the APIs. I know, well, personally, I love APIs. I'm to the point of, if I could just write APIs for the rest of my life, I'll be good.
Yeah. And, until Blazor came around, to be honest, I didn't see a lot of value in ASP.NET, just because ASP.NET MVC, I think most people can do a better job using JavaScript like
Mm-hmm.
Angular and React. But there is a need for, hey, you're building an Angular or a React application, and you need to have an API. You know what? Perfect. ASP.NET Core 3.1 Web API is a perfect API platform to develop an API for your web applications. And I will go through and I will show how Angular, basically how you can consume and the API that we develop from JavaScript, from a JavaScript application. So that will be a part of the workshop towards the end, is how to consume the API once we get it up and running.
Like I said, that's the model we use. I mean, we're ASP.NET 2.1 at the moment. We're getting ready to upgrade to 3.1, but we're 2.1, and then it's an Angular web app, it's a Swift iOS app, and then I keep on forgetting the name of the Kotlin for our Android app.
Yeah, and that's why APIs are so important, because we can build them once and you can consume them from many different types of applications and systems in many different locations. So you can build them and you can interact with them from IoT devices,
Mm-hmm.
little Raspberry Pis or things in your car or anything. So they are, I think they're the most important technology that's really happened in the last 10 years.
And I'm curious in your thoughts. So one of the things we're experiencing is whether one API rules them all, or we actually write some specialized APIs. In particular, I mean, just because mobile is different than the web. So we're in the middle of debating that right now as to whether we should try to make one API that is capable of doing both, or we write a separate API to handle the different needs.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I do think that mobile applications that consume APIs should probably have a less noisy payloads. So our formats, the formats that we return back, maybe they're a lighter version of JSON. And how do we do that? I mean, that's interesting. Should the API adapt from the HTTP request? Because you basically can figure out where the request is coming from. So should we do it that way, or should we do it from an explicit URL that the consumer calls into the API? So is it something that is part of the URI that tells the API that, hey, I'm a mobile application and I need a lighter version of the content that maybe it sends over less or no metadata to make that payload smaller. So that's interesting. I don't know if I'm going to get into that during the workshop, but I'll try.
Yeah.
I'll try to bring that up in the workshop. I mean, we have different philosophies, and but you know what? You just hit on a great topic. I'm also doing started out 30 days of web APIs. So I'm going to blog and do 30 blog.
Oh, cool.
I originally was going to do 30 blog posts around web APIs. It's up to 32 now, and you just made me realize I need a 33rd post. So now it's going to be 33 days of web APIs. So I appreciate that. So thank you.
I'm glad to give you more work, right? That's
yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean, like I say, it's been in the back of my head for the last couple of weeks because we've been talking about that.
Yeah.
Admittedly, we haven't put serious thought into it yet, but it's something we're starting to wrangle with.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you can figure it out from the HTTP request headers, I would probably lean that way, because then you're not enforcing your consumer to do anything different.
Sure.
But it's a good idea. So I need to look into that over the next couple of weeks. So let's keep talking. Maybe we'll have a little private.
Yeah, no, that'd be great.
Week or two about that.
I mean, it came up a couple weeks ago, and I haven't even thought about it again until thinking about this right here, because, like I say, it's something that over the next couple of months I have to work out. Well, let me do one more question, because I know I want to get you. I know you got a meeting you need to get to. I apologize if you hear the dog behind him. That means it's time for him to go on his walk.
No, that's cool. No,
and that's the fun part about working from home, right?
Yep.
But last question I want to talk to you about was, one of the challenges, and we briefly talked about this earlier, but what are the challenges you're seeing, in your job, in particular, at such a large corporation?
I didn't hear the question.
So what are the challenges that you're dealing with, that you're seeing in technology in particular,
Well, I think it's not the technology.
Mm-hmm. It's
the communication. It's sharing ideas, and really that is the biggest challenge when you have thousands, say 2,000 people in a technology organization. How do you share the ideas? How do you let those ideas organically kind of propagate out? And you don't want to force stuff on people, but you also don't want to keep everything kind of insulated in small teams, because one team may have a great idea and they need to get that idea out and others to learn from it. I think it's the just shared knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Is the biggest challenge, I think, for large any large organization, but especially technology organizations.
Yeah. No, great. I agree with you. I mean, I will say that's great. Great thing. No, it's not a great thing, but well, Crow. Again, I really do appreciate you taking the time to meet with me and talk a little bit.
Oh, no problem, Chad. I really appreciate you having me on and letting me kind of get on my soapbox for a little while.
And I'm going to rush off because I got my alarm going off. My daughter walked out of the house without turning off the alarm.
Cool. So,
well, again, I really do appreciate it.
I'm really looking forward to Code PaLOusa. I hope everyone comes and learns a lot, not only from me, but all the other smarter people that they're going to be presenting there. So thank you, Chad, for doing it virtually. I do appreciate you doing that, just to share knowledge. So it's awesome.
Well, thank you so much.